guys? FilmFan0599 here again. And today we're going to be doing something new. I am going to be debuting a new segment here on this channel called Retrospect. Now, what exactly is Retrospect? Well, Retrospect will be where I take a film series that has 3 or more, films in its series, and I'm going to review all of them into one video. So it's pretty much like my franchise reviews that I used to do back in the day where, I took a franchise, reviewed each film each day, but, instead of reviewing and watching each film each day, like once at a time, I'm going to just put it into one video. I'm still taking that concept with the original franchise reviews, but instead of releasing, one of the reviews each day, I'm going to just film one, then put it in the video, and it will be put, all the reviews will be put into one video. So that's how I'm going to be doing it. And the first franchise we're going to be doing for this retrospect is going to be the Spider-Man franchise. Spider-Man is one of the most iconic characters, not just in comic books, but just in medium in general. He is just a character that's stuck around for so many years, and, he's just, an argument can be made that he is the greatest superhero of all time. He is just one that everyone wanted to be. You want to be Spider-Man, I want to be Spider-Man. Everyone loves this character. He is just one of the most likable characters and one of the most personally relatable characters out there. And I think that's the reason why they keep on making movies of him. And we're going to be talking about all of them. We're going to be talking about all of them. We're going to talk about the Sam Raimi trilogy. We're going to talk about the Amazing Spider-Man films. We're going to talk about Homecoming, because this is all going to lead into Spider-Man Far From Home. Well, not all of the movies. Homecoming is going to be the only one that's going to lead into Spider-Man Far From Home. But you get the point. You get the point. We're reviewing all of them because of that. And real quick, there's going to be spoilers for all of these movies. So if you have not seen any of these films, I would actually not recommend watching them, because I'm going to be talking about these movies, I'm going to be talking about certain things that happen in these films. So if you haven't seen them, there's your spoiler warning. Don't watch this if you haven't seen any of these Spider-Man movies. So there's your spoiler warning. Now, let's get into it. Let's talk about the first installment in this franchise. Let's go. Alrighty, so for the one that started it all, Spider-Man. Now, before Spider-Man, Marvel, they were actually getting somewhat successful with their live-action adaptations, even beforehand, they really weren't. But once Blade and X-Men came out, they were starting to find some success. They were like, oh, okay, we're starting to get some success with these live-action films. Then Spider-Man came along, and everything changed for them from there. Spider-Man was a massive success. Everyone loved it. Everyone went out to go and see it. It was a critical hit, and for good reasoning, because this movie, in my opinion, is the prime example of how to do the perfect superhero origin story film. It is still my favorite superhero origin story movie to this day. This movie is perfection. The way that it tells the origin of not only just Peter Parker, but its other characters in general is just fantastic. What I love about this movie the most is how it fleshes out its characters. I feel like this movie does not get enough credit for how it fleshes out its characters. I love how it fleshes out its characters in this film. Of course, the main one, Peter Parker / Spider-Man, who is played excellently by Tobey Maguire. His evolution in this movie is excellent. When we see him at the start of the film, he is an everyday high school nerd. He is a nerd at its finest. But once he gets bitten by the radioactive spider, everything changes for him. And I just love the scene. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he first discovers what he has become. I love that scene because, when he's crawling up the walls and he realizes it, he goes, woohoo! Like, it is excellent. It's like how everyone would react if they got powers like that. It's great. I also love the scene where, he's trying to discover how he shoots the webs, and he's like, go web, go! He's like, Shazam! It's so great to watch. It's one of my favorite moments. And it's my favorite, first discovering your powers in any superhero film. Like, just generally his reaction and how he, first discovers him is great. And, when he first gets these powers, he's kind of selfish with it. Because all he really wants to do is just impress Mary Jane, get this nice car, go to this wrestling thing. Like, he's very selfish. And, Uncle Ben gives him that speech of, with great power comes great responsibility. And I like that. I've always loved that speech a lot. And when Uncle Ben unfortunately dies, in the film, it's much more impactful. And when you see Peter just so upset and feeling like it's his fault that he's dead, especially when he finds out that the guy that killed him was the guy that he let go at the wrestling event, like, it's genuinely sad. And he realizes that this is not how I'm supposed to be a hero. And, he's very vengeful when he tries to track down the killer. And, and that's why I think people love a hero like Spider-Man. Because, he doesn't go to that point where he needs to kill. And that's when he realizes that in that moment, you know what I mean? And it's great. Like, I love that. And, he realizes that he needs to be the hero that this city needs. And how it fleshes out its other characters, too. Like Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. I love him in this movie. He is great as the Green Goblin. There's no other guy that could have gotten more of a perfect casting for this character. And there's generally no other person I could see playing this character than Willem Dafoe. He brings the creepiness. He brings the insanity to this character that this character needs. And I love that kind of dual personality we see in the film. We have Norman Osborn, and then we have the Green Goblin. I love seeing those two just kind of collide, and it's great. Like, it creates a great conflict in this movie. And whenever, the Green Goblin goes up against Spider-Man, it's great. Like, I love the action scenes between the two of them. It's intense as hell, especially when you get to that final battle. Like, Spider-Man gets the snot beaten out of him in that final battle. Like, it is generally brutal to watch. Like, he gets his ass handed to him. Like, honestly, like, it is brutal to watch. It's one of the most brutal fight scenes I think I've ever seen in a superhero film, to be quite honest, or just a movie in general, honestly. Like, it is so brutal to watch. But, you feel every punch that is being laid to Spider-Man. Like, generally, it is quite brutal to watch. Like, it's just so great, and that's what makes these action sequences so intense, because both of the characters are so great. And, it's definitely one of the best villain-hero dynamics I've ever seen, honestly. Like, I really love how they do that in this film. Even Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane is great. I love how they flesh out her character, too, in this film. And that's why I feel like not enough people give credit to in this movie, too. She's great. I love her arc. I love seeing her interactions with Peter in this film. Like, yeah, is it kind of cutesy and dumb? Yeah, sure. But that's what makes it great, honestly. Like, that's what I love about it. And it's so fantastic. And, it's really great. Like, I love seeing their interactions with each other. And also, it gave us the greatest kiss in cinematic history. Don't at me. But I love it. Like, it's great. Like, I love their interactions with each other in this film. It's a perfect character movie, honestly. Like, yeah, sure, you got your flashy action sequences and stuff like that, but it is a perfect character film. It delves deep into its characters so much. And I love seeing everyone's character arc in this film and what they eventually become in the movie. And I love that about this film. It is the perfect superhero origin story film. I love it so much. Like, rewatching this movie, I was like, man, I'm just getting all these feels again, because just this movie is just so great. Like I said, it is the prime example of how to do the perfect origin story film. And Sam Raimi, he brings this movie to life with his direction. Like, I love his directing with this film. It is literally a comic book come to life. And I love his directing with this movie. He takes you into the world of Spider-Man and just brings you right into it. Like, it seemed like this guy was destined to make a comic book movie at some point, and he just does an absolutely great job directing this film. So yeah, Spider-Man, I love this movie. Like, it is still one of my all-time favorite comic book films, and still one of my favorite movies in general. I love rewatching this movie so much, because it is just so great to watch. It is a great character piece that I feel like doesn't get enough credit for being a great character piece. Honestly, a lot of people just see it as, oh, the goofy, dumb movie, but I don't see it as that. Yes, can it get goofy? Yes, but I love that about this movie. but at its core, it is a great character study movie. Like, it generally does its characters to justice well, and I love seeing that, honestly, and it's fantastic. So yeah, Spider-Man, still to this day, the greatest superhero origin story film, in my opinion. So after a very successful first movie, a sequel was indeed bound to happen. In 2004, we got that with SpiderMan II. SpiderMan II is not only one of the best comic book movies out there, one of the best sequels out there, but one of the best movies out there in general. Spider-Man II is absolutely fantastic. It's a masterpiece in my opinion. This film is, it's so amazing. Honestly, it's a really fantastic film. Before the Dark Knight trilogy, before the MCU, this set the bar for modern superhero films. Honestly, like, I feel like it does not get enough credit for that. Like, this really set the bar for modern superhero films. You know, because this movie is deep. I'm talking really, really deep. Like, the first movie was indeed deep. Like, that was a great, character study, action film, having some great action. But this really somehow gets even deeper. Like, this movie really gets deep down into the core with its characters. And I love that about this movie. Like, I really love that about Spider-Man 2. It's not afraid to go that deep with its characters, and they definitely do that with this film, and it's absolutely incredible. Life is just throwing every punch at Peter Parker in this movie. Like, obviously he's been Spider-Man for a few years, and it's starting to overwhelm him. It's starting to ruin his life, almost. Like, he's losing his job, he's always late to his classes, he can't show up to, Mary Jane's play, Harry's on his ass because, he takes Spider-Man's pictures, and, after what happened in the first movie, Harry thinks Spider-Man killed his father, so, Peter, he wants some answers from Peter and stuff. So, there's a lot of things going on with Peter that you just feel bad for the guy, because life is just handing him one punch after another, and it's devastating to watch, because it's like his life is falling apart. And, sure, he's saving lives, and, he's great, he's doing a great job as Spider-Man, but it's really overtaking his life, and you see that, and you feel bad for him, to the point where his powers are disappearing because of it. And it's devastating to watch. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the scene where he throws away the Spider-Man suit and just is like, I'm done. Like, I can't take this anymore. Like, it's really emotional. Like, honestly, like, when I was rewatching it, I almost, like, teared up. I was like, man, like, this is really sad to watch. Like, he just gives up, because he's just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, and just seeing that is devastating, because, for me, Spider-Man has always been the hero that never gives up. He's the ultimate definition of, being a hero. So to see this, it's just devastating to watch. And they do it so fantastically in this movie. And just seeing that, and then once he comes to the ultimate realization that, I'm what the city needs. I need to be Spider-Man. It's beautiful, and I love it. And just the way that they handle it in this movie, it's so great. Like, it is, without question, the best I've seen Peter Parker and any of the Spider-Man movies. Like, it's how they do it in this film is so fantastic. Like, that conflict of, do I want to be Spider-Man, but do I want to be Peter Parker? Like, just that choice. It's so great. I love it so much. Like, just how they handle it in this movie it's so fantastically done, in my opinion. I love how they handle that and handle the character of Peter Parker in this movie, because they do a great job with that. Alfred Molina as Dr. Octavius / Doc Ock. Still my favorite villain in the entire Spider-Man series. Just what they do with this character is so great. He's just this nice guy, but once once a freak accident happens, they'll those tentacles take control of him, basically messing with his mind. And it's kind of like with the Green Goblin. It's like a dual personality. It's like, it's controlling him, like, to do things that he doesn't want to do. And it's really fantastic. I really like seeing that. Like, the hospital scene, man, like, that felt like Sam Raimi horror, like, right there. That felt like straight up Evil Dead. Like, I actually really love that scene a lot. Like, it's horrifying to watch. I remember being scared out of my mind as a kid seeing that scene, because it was just horrifying to see, like, these tentacles just basically ripping everyone apart. Like, it is brutal as hell to watch. And, Alfred Molini's performance is great. Like, I love him as this character. And then, once we see, Spider-Man and Doc Ock go head to head with each other, it's intense as hell. You know what I mean? It's great. Like, I love their, fights in this film. Like, the bank scene. Love that. And it's so fantastic. But, of course, quite possibly the GOAT of all action superhero movie sequences, the train scene. The train sequence is still one of my, top 10 favorite action scenes of all time. That is so intense, so emotional. Just everything about that sequence is perfect. I love that sequence so much. It's just what you need from an action sequence, and they do it all perfectly, in my opinion. Like seeing Spider-Man try to hang on to the train, or having to stop the train. When he has to stop the train, it's intense as hell, because you have no idea if he's gonna try and stop that train. Honestly, like, it's generally terrifying to witness. I actually, really like how they filmed that scene and how they did that scene, honestly. Like, it's really great. Like, I love it. And, like I said, still remains one of my favorite action sequences of all time. I still got goosebumps and still got really, on the edge of my seat watching it, rewatching it, because it holds up so well, in my opinion. And then the other characters too, like Mary Jane Watson, Harry Osborn, and Kirsten Dunst and James Franco play both of those characters, respectively well in this movie. They do a great job here too. I love the conflicts that they have. I love it when they're confronting Peter about being like, dude, where have you been? It's just, I love how that happens. I love the conflicts in this movie. And it's amazing. Like, I love it. It's so fantastic. And the emotion here, every emotion is earned in this movie. Every single one. Like, it's so emotional to witness, honestly. And they do such a phenomenal job with that in this film, honestly. I just love this movie so much. It's so incredible, honestly. It is genuinely one of the best movies out there, honestly. Not, like I said, not just comic book, not just sequel, just in general, honestly. Like, if you were to go into the dictionary and look up the word perfection, you would find a poster of Spider-Man II in there, because it is just perfection. I love this movie so much. I can't really express too much how much I love this film, because, we got other movies to talk about, but just this movie is incredible. It still remains one of my all-time favorite films, and in my opinion, it's without question Marvel's best movie. And I don't think it will ever be topped, honestly, because it's just that perfect of a film. It's literally one of the best character studies I have ever seen in a film, period. I love Spider-Man 2. It is absolute perfection in every sense of the word. So after a very successful first and second installment, you would think the third installment would be just as good, right? Well, if this were years ago, I would tell you, no, the movie was disappointing and it was very bad. But honestly, after this latest rewatch, I really like this movie. That movie is SpiderMan III. Now, listen, there are some things I still don't like about this movie. Let me get those out of the way first. Venom and Gwen Stacy are very thrown into this. They literally don't have any purpose of being here. Gwen Stacy, especially Gwen Stacy, literally the only reason she is in this movie is to create a love triangle between her, Peter, and Mary Jane. That's literally it. That's the only reason she is in this movie. Like, other than that, she literally serves no purpose to this film whatsoever. She feels very forced into this, and she legitimately does not need to be here. Same goes with Eddie Brock / Venom. Topher Grace is awful in this movie. He is legit the worst actor that this trilogy has had, and he is the worst character this trilogy has had. He is awful in this movie. He's awful as Eddie Brock. He's especially even more awful as Venom. And I hate the design for what they did with Venom in this movie. Just what they did with Venom in this film is really terrible. I hate it, honestly. Like I legitimately don't like this character in this movie. Like it's terrible. Like legitimately, Topher Grace is literally the worst actor this trilogy has seen, and I don't enjoy him in this movie whatsoever. He's bad. Like, seriously, like, Venom and Gwen Stacy literally had no purpose of being in here, and they just feel very thrown into it. I would have loved to have seen, because when you see Peter in the black suit, I would have loved to have seen, when we see the much more aggressive side to him. We'll get to that in a minute. But I wish we could have seen Spider-Man more in the black suit. Like I would have loved to have seen beat on criminals. Like I would have loved to have seen that, doing much more damage to criminals because he's much more aggressive now. Like I would have loved to have seen that. I think that was a very missed opportunity. I would have loved to have seen that. And lastly, I think some of the visual effects at times don't look the best. There are some times where the visual effects don't really look that great, especially in one fight scene in particular towards the beginning with Peter and Harry. Yeah, it doesn't really look that good. But other than that, I honestly really like a lot of things about this movie. This movie is a lot deeper than I remembered, to be honest with you. It honestly is. Like, this movie is a lot deeper than I remember it being, And this movie, just like the others, follows a theme, In the other films, the first film followed the theme of responsibility and becoming the hero that you need to become. SpiderMan II, although things can be overwhelming, never give up. SpiderMan III, the theme of revenge and how much it can consume somebody to the point where they don't know who they are anymore. And, man, is it done excellently here. I love what they do with Peter in this film. I used to hate what they did with Peter because of the emo Peter Parker stuff, but I'll get to that in a moment. But what they do with Peter in this movie is fantastic. And, because you see in the beginning of the film, and a lot of people don't really talk about this. He's loved. For the first time, he is, he has actual confidence. For the first time in his life, he has some actual confidence. Because everyone loves him as Spider-Man, so he feels some confidence. It gets to his head a bit. He becomes a bit cocky, and we see that in the beginning of the movie. And I love that. Like, it just showing what it's going to be once the symbiote comes to him. Because once the symbiote gets onto him, it becomes even worse for him. And I love that. And it just changes his whole personality. Now, what this very much reminds me of, if anybody has seen the show Smallville, whenever Clark Kent is exposed to red kryptonite, it changes his whole personality. He's much more aggressive, he's a lot more egotistical and narcissistic. Like, it's basically a side of Clark Kent we don't usually see because Clark Kent's very outgoing, a nice farm boy. But then all of a sudden, at the flash of red kryptonite, he's all of a sudden a bad boy. And it's really great. I love seeing that in that show, and I love seeing it here with Peter Parker with the symbiote. Because that's exactly just like what that was. Just like what red kryptonite was to Clark Kent, is what the symbiote is to Peter Parker. Once it latches onto him, it changes his whole personality. He's much more aggressive, much more egotistical. It's just a side of Peter Parker we don't usually see. And it's really well done, honestly. Like, I legitimately love what they do with it. And when he finds out his uncle's killer is still out there, overdrive mode. Like, in the black suit, like I said, makes it worse. It makes him turn into something that he's not. And it's so great. Like, I love seeing that. Just Peter diving off of the edge, becoming someone who he's not. And I love seeing that. Like, I love seeing this much more egotistical version of him. And they do such a fantastic job with it in this film. And then, once Peter realizes, like, who am I? Who have I become? I don't even know who I am. Like, once he realizes that, man, it's heartbreaking to watch because he's like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, it's so heartbreaking to watch, honestly. I do think they do a very great job with it. And Tobey Maguire's performance, fantastic, man. This dude does not get enough credit. My God, man, he is so fantastic in this film, and in the whole trilogy, to be honest. Like, he just does such a great job in this movie. I love what they do with Harry in this film. James Franco, man, he just kills it in this film. Like, I love what they do with him in this movie, honestly. Like, there's a fight scene in this movie. Now, I talked about a fight scene between them earlier. That wasn't the best. But there's another fight scene that happens between the two of them. It's in Harry's own home. God, is it brutal. Like, honestly, like, Harry starts bleeding from his mouth at one point. Like, my favorite moment. This has always been one of my favorite moments in the entire trilogy. So, Harry goes to throw one of the bombs, right? He throws it. Peter ducks, shoots it with his web, throws it right back at him, and it, like, explodes in Harry's face. And he just walks off, and, like, the Spider-Man logo, you know, the black one, just kind of zooms in onto the camera. I love it. That's still, like, one of my favorite moments in the entire trilogy, to be honest. Like, yeah, I just think James Franco does a great job in this film. Same goes with Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson. Like, I love her in this movie. She does a great job. I love the kind of relationship, you know, I love the relationship that Peter and Mary Jane have in this film. You know, a lot of complications are happening, but, you know, they're trying to work it out, but it just seems too much at some points. And I really like seeing that a lot, too. I thought they did a great job with that in this film, honestly. The action sequences are still really good. I really like the action sequences a lot in this film. Sandman. How can I forget? Thomas Hayden Church, man. Oh, it's one of the most underrated villain performances out there. Man, Thomas Hayden Church just kills it in this movie. And you feel bad for him. Like, you know, this is a villain you really sympathize with, to be honest. Because, like, he's just, you know, he's just trying to find money for his daughter because she's dying. And he's just trying everything, but he's just going about it the wrong way. And you really feel bad for him, honestly. Like, it's like, you know, he's doing the wrong thing, but, like, you feel bad for him because, like, he's going through a lot, but he's just really doing it the wrong way. And, you know, there are other ways to do it. And, you know, it's really heartbreaking to watch. And, man, Thomas Hayden Church does a really fantastic job in the film. And, yeah, the writing is great with this movie, too. Underrated screenplay. I love the writing with this movie. Sam Raimi, man, I love this guy. Like, I love Sam Raimi, man. He understands these characters in this world so much. I'm not saying, you know, no other director really understands how these characters works. You know, we'll get to that later on with other movies, but, like, just, like, he just knew. Like, you could feel it. You could feel the passion that he had with all these movies. Like, you really did. And even with this one, you know, I know Sony was on his ass a lot for this film, you know, and, like, trying to make changes, but he still made the best that he could with what he had, honestly. And he did a really great job, and I love his directing with this film. I love the direction that he goes with in this film. It's so fantastic, and I just absolutely love what he does here in this movie, and it's so fantastic. And honestly, you know, I know a fourth movie was supposed to be made. I am disappointed that we never got to see that fourth movie. This honestly does feel like the conclusive finale. Honestly, this does feel like a really good finale. To be honest with you, I do think this ends the trilogy off on a good note. Overall, I have found new light in Spider-Man 3, honestly. Like, I went from really hating this movie a lot to actually really liking it. And it's a very good film. It is definitely one of the most underrated comic book movies out there. And I really enjoyed this movie a lot. It is very good in my opinion. And honestly, I'm really glad I rewatched this again because, you know, I'm glad that, you know, because I love it when you watch a movie that maybe you didn't really care about the first time around, but on the second rewatching, you're kind of like, you know, this is actually a lot better than I remembered. I love it when that happens. I'm actually really glad that this happened with this movie because, man, it's just this movie is so much better than I remember, and I feel like a lot of people remember, to be honest. You know, it's really good, and I really like it a lot. So, yeah, Spider-Man 3, really damn good, honestly. So, despite the lukewarm reception that Spider-Man 3 got, it was still a huge success at the box office. So, Sony wanted to make a fourth Spider-Man movie, and after some, debating with Sony and Sam Raimi, and just not really being happy with the story, Spider-Man 4 got canceled. So what does Sony decide to do? Sony decides to do is reboot Spider-Man so soon because they need to desperately keep these rights to this character. So what do, they instead reboot him with The Amazing Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man, I used to really like this movie a lot. I don't know why, in 2013, I had a mild obsession with this movie. I would watch it every night. I don't know why, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie, it was fun. But watching it now, man, does it not hold up? It really doesn't. This really does feel like it, honestly, I hate to sound like this, but it really feels like a desperate cash grab for a studio that's desperate to keep the rights to this character. It really does feel like that, because it's pretty much Spider-Man 1, except just with little things thrown in there. And certainly not done as well. It's not good. It honestly isn't. I really don't enjoy this movie that much. It's almost terrible to watch, honestly. It is one of the lamest superhero origin stories out there. Now, in terms of things I like, the acting's not bad for the most part in this movie. It's fine, I guess. Andrew Garfield is very 50-50 in this movie. As Peter Parker, he is not good. I do not enjoy him as Peter Parker. He is almost unbearable to watch as Peter Parker. He is not good. Honestly, he feels so wooden, so bland. I don't enjoy him in this movie as Peter Parker. But as Spider-Man, he's actually pretty good. I enjoy him as Spider-Man in the film. He has some funny moments, he has some cool moments here and there as the character. So yeah, it's a really weird situation. As Peter Parker, I can barely stand him. But as Spider-Man, he's not too bad. He's actually pretty good, so it's weird. Emma Stone is fine as Gwen Stacy, she doesn't do too bad of a job. Rhys Ifans as the Lizard / Dr. Connors, wow, what a terribly undeveloped villain, honestly. Seriously, he is not good in this movie. I think the Lizard is an awful villain. Out of all the Spider-Man villains you could have used for this movie, you go with the dang Lizard. And the design for him, easily one of the worst designs I have ever seen in my life. His design looks awful. I honestly hate the way he looks in this movie. He looks terrible, and he's just an awful villain, honestly. Despite the look, he's just an awful villain. He's not good. Honestly, he feels so underdeveloped, and he doesn't feel like a menacing villain. There's no tension whenever him and Spider-Man fight, to be honest. The only time I felt some sort of tension a little bit was in the school action scene. And that's about it, really. There's really not much tension, and it makes for the action scenes to not really be that good for the most part, honestly. I found some of the action to be really bland in this movie, to be honest. It isn't earned, honestly. There's really no emotion I feel during it. I feel no tension during the action sequences. It's not good. Honestly, I don't really enjoy the action sequences in this film because there's just no tension or no emotion behind them. The emotion feels so forced, honestly, in this movie. And no one just seems to they don't really embody how Spider-Man is emotionally, and they just really don't get that. They try to do it, but it doesn't feel earned. The death of Uncle Ben. It does not feel as natural as it did in Spider-Man 1. It really doesn't. It does not feel it just so happens randomly to me, honestly. It doesn't feel right. When he dies, I don't care, honestly, which sucks, because Uncle Ben's death is supposed to be, a very, emotional thing for Peter, and I don't feel any emotion. Honestly, Because it's not that well done in this movie, honestly. Like, it's kind of poorly done here. The emotion is really poorly done in this movie. Like, I don't really feel any emotion in this movie because, like I said, it's poorly done. When Captain Stacy dies, I don't feel any emotion because I didn't care. Like, I don't care for any of the emotion in this movie because it's just so poorly done. The filmmaking with this movie is it's awful. It's like TV movie made. Like, my good buddy, you know, Kevin Falk, as he would like to put it, it feels like MTV was making this movie, and it really does. Honestly, it really does. Like, Mark Webb's directing feels very lifeless here, to be completely honest with you. It feels so lifeless. It really does. Like, he doesn't give any style, nothing. Like, it really has nothing to it. The cinematography looks awful. It honestly does. Like, the cinematography looks terrible with this film. Honestly, like, it's just so poorly made. Honestly, like, I really do think The Amazing Spider-Man is poorly made. It really does. Like, you're making a Spider-Man movie. Make it look like one. Like, it's so, like, poorly made, honestly. Like, the directing is not good. Like, the cinematography looks awful. Even the editing is not really that good at points, to be honest, either. Like, it's not good. Like, the filmmaking is so poor with this film. It feels like I said, they were making a TV movie for MTV or something. And I honestly hate how overly dark this movie is, to be completely honest with you. Like, obviously, Spider-Man needs to have his dark moments. Obviously. You know, a couple of those dark moments really elevate the character that he is. But don't make the whole movie feel like that, because it doesn't work. Like, you're just trying to make, you're pretty much, they're trying to make Batman Begins with Spider-Man. Like, it's like Sony watched Batman Begins and they were like, hey, let's try that with the Amazing Spider-Man. It doesn't work. It really doesn't. Like, it doesn't work at all for Spider-Man, honestly. Like, making him an overly dark character just doesn't work, and it shows in this movie. Like, it really doesn't work, honestly. Like, making him like an overly dark character absolutely doesn't work, and it clearly shows in this film. The Amazing Spider-Man is not good. I do not enjoy this movie. Almost like, it's almost unbearable to watch to me at points, to be honest. It's really not good. Like, I don't enjoy this movie, honestly. It is, what could have been actually a solid reboot, it instead feels like just a cash grab. Honestly. Like, it really does. Like, I do not enjoy this movie. The Amazing Spider-Man is one of the lamest superhero origin story films out there. Without question. Oh boy. So the first Amazing Spider-Man was a success. So a sequel was pretty much inbound for this movie. So it came out 2014. This movie, I'm gonna just say, this movie's another disaster. Like, honest to God, this movie is just an utter disaster. It's a train wreck put onto film. I just, like, how did I like this so much when it first came out? I don't get it. How did I think this was a better movie than SpiderMan III? This movie, not just even that this movie is a total disaster, it's also really boring. Like, they managed to make this even more boring than the first one. Like, how? Why was this almost 2.5 hours? Why? Just, why? Why was this almost 2.5 hours? Where do I even begin? Where do I even begin with this mess of a movie? Okay, literally the only redeemable thing that I think I could come up with this film is that Andrew Garfield is a bit better this time around. I still don't think he's like the best Peter Parker or Spider-Man out there, but he is a bit better this time around. I find this Peter Parker a bit more likable in this one. You know what I mean? And he is good at Spider-Man, but like, it's still not enough to really make me think he's have a memorable portrayal of this character. But if there's really only one redeemable thing I could say about this movie, it's that. Everything else is awful. Emma Stone, I did not like her in this movie. This is honestly probably her like worst performance to me. I thought she was very annoying here. I did not like Gwen Stacy in this film, to be honest. Like, I thought she was fine in the first one, but in this second one, she's really annoying. Which sucks, because I like the character of Gwen Stacy a lot, but they just make her really annoying in this. And like, I still don't buy the relationship. The relationship, I don't care about it. It's still not good, honestly. I don't buy into Peter and Gwen's relationship in this. You know, like, it's just still not good in my opinion. However, collectively, mind you, the three worst actors in this entire film are literally all the villains. Dane DeHaan, Jamie Foxx, and Paul Giamatti. Literally. I can't pick who's worse in this movie, to be honest, because they're all awful. Yes, I know Paul Giamatti's only in it for like the first and last scene, but like, still. Yeah, actually, what was Rhino's purpose of being in this movie? What really was Rhino's purpose of being in this film? Just so we can have a cool opening scene and have a really just god-awful final scene? That's it? Like, But anyways, yeah, Paul Giamatti is terrible. Like, I was like, well, what are you doing? Because I like Paul Giamatti. Paul Giamatti's a good actor, but like, what was he doing? Seriously, like, I felt like he was like, it's like he was like filled up on like, he was like a donkey on cocaine. Like, he just was like, like, he just was like, I get it, you're supposed to act like really crazy because you're the Rhino, but like, tone it down a bit. And it was bad. Jamie Foxx as Electro. What was Jamie Foxx doing? And I love Jamie Foxx. Great actor. What was he doing? Like, this is one of the worst performances I've ever seen in my life. This is just, it's not good. Like, this might be like top 5 worst comic book villains I've ever seen in a film, to be honest. Like, he is awful as Electro. Some of the lines he is given in this movie, it's like, who? Like, it's so bad. Like, he's terrible in this. Dane DeHaan. Everyone makes fun of Tobey Maguire for being emo Peter Parker in SpiderMan III. How about, like, Dane DeHaan is pretty much just emo Harry Osborn in this. Like, honestly. Like, he is bad in this movie. And I love Dane DeHaan. Dane DeHaan's a great actor. But what was he doing in this? He's awful. Like, I did not, like, it's just, and plus, like, his motivation, like, I just hate how they go so fast with him becoming the Green Goblin. Or like the new Goblin or whatever, but he becomes the Green Goblin in this. But I just hate how they rushed that. Like, that could have been explored into multiple films, but they rushed it into this one movie. And it doesn't feel earned when he becomes the Green Goblin. It really doesn't. And he's bad in this. Like, really bad. That's another thing. They try to cram so much into this movie. Like, what could have been, there could have been certain things that they could have explored throughout a couple of movies. But they try to cram it all into this one film, and it just becomes a mess. It does. Like, it generally does. It just becomes a big old giant mess. Like nothing feels earned in this. Nothing. Like, it's just a mess. Also, this movie doesn't know what it wants to be. The tone is all over the place with this film. At least with Spider-Man 3, it has a somewhat cohesive story and I can follow what's going along. In this, I have no idea what's going on because they just keep on shifting everything every like 5 minutes. The action sequences are bad in this. They are just not good. Like, I generally did not enjoy the action sequences in this film. And this is supposed to be a Spider-Man movie. This is supposed to have some really fun action sequences, and none of the action sequences here are fun at all. Like, generally, I do not think any of the action scenes are good in this. The visual effects look awful. Like, easily the worst visual effects I think I've ever seen in a Spider-Man film. Like, they look awful in this. I hate how the visual effects look in this. The filmmaking is a bit better this time around, but it isn't still good. At least I'll give credit to, Mark Webb for at least trying to make it a little bit more colorful this time around. And not making it look like a Batman movie in the first one. But, it's still not good. It's still poorly filmed in my opinion. The cinematography still isn't really the best in the editing. Oh my god, the editing. But it's still not good. I'll give credit that it's a bit better this time around, but it's still not that good, honestly. Oh, man. And the emotions. The emotional stuff is not earned at all in this movie. Honestly, it is not earned at all. The biggest thing that pisses me off in this movie is the death of Gwen Stacy. I cannot stress this enough. This is supposed to be one of the most important arcs in Spider-Man's character. And I feel nothing. I feel nothing during this. That goes to show you how bad this dang movie is. Like, honestly. Like, I'm supposed to be feeling emotional, sad. Hell, I should be crying at this. This is an emotional thing for Peter Parker and Spider-Man's character. But no, I feel nothing. They literally took one of the most important moments in comic book history and just made it into just this. Like, and this was the first time we had seen it in a live action form, and they just blow it. Man, this movie frustrates me a lot because, I love Spider-Man a lot, and, I don't, all of his movies can't be good. Of course, there's going to be a couple of duds, but when you're doing stuff like this, sorry, that's just going to piss me off, honestly. Like, this movie it's awful. I hate this movie so much. Like, this movie is just god-awful. Literally a literal mess from start to finish. I generally don't know what I saw in this movie when I first saw it in theaters back in 2014. How did I defend this movie for so long? I don't get it. I really don't get it. This movie is awful. Easily the worst Spider-Man movie in one of the worst comic book films of all time. So after the colossal disaster that was The Amazing Spider-Man II, Sony once again was in a rut with Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man II didn't do enough financially like they wanted it to. It received very, very negative reviews. And Andrew Garfield was fired. So once again, they were in a rut with Spider-Man. And so Sony was just like, alright, we gotta do the thing that we don't want to do, but we gotta do it. So, they gave the rights back to Marvel Studios. So that meant Spider-Man was gonna be in the MCU now, which is something that we've all wanted for years. And it was finally coming true. It was finally happening. Spider-Man is going to be in the MCU. And he made his first appearance in Civil War. But we didn't get really a full introduction to this character until this next movie, Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming was the first entry for Spider-Man in the MCU. So a lot was waving on this movie. It's the first entry for Spider-Man in the MCU, and a lot of people, were excited, but were like, alright, come on, this is the third time we've seen a Spider-Man in, like, barely 15 years. Come on. How many times are we going to do this character? Come on now. And I get that, but they kind of had no choice. But But, so a lot was waving on this movie. A lot was on this movie. And it delivered. Spider-Man Homecoming is great. I still really love this movie a lot. I do think it is a great Spider-Man film. And a lot of people, I know this wasn't supposed to be an origin story film, but it still felt like it. Honestly, this still felt like an origin story movie to me. Even though, he was already Spider-Man, apparently that whole process, of him getting bit by the spider already happened, but this still felt like an origin story to me. The themes of responsibility and learning to be a hero are very, very relevant here. And they do a great job with that. Tom Holland is by far my favorite actor to play Spider-Man, to be honest. He just, he just has everything. He really does. He encapsulates everything that this character needs. He has the humor, he has the emotion, and he just does a great job as his character. I love him. He embodies everything that this character needs to have, and he does such a phenomenal job in this film. He does not, I feel like sometimes he doesn't get enough credit for this movie, I feel. He just does such a great job here. I love how he just encapsulates, the role of Peter Parker / Spider-Man. He does such an excellent job here. And, I love, the stuff that he has to learn in this movie. It's great because, at first, he's kind of like, I want to do bigger things, I'm somewhat with Tony Stark now, I should be doing bigger things, taking down bigger criminals, and we see that. We see that a lot of, throughout the film, and, he's trying to take down the Vulture, but he keeps on messing things up, and, it's just, that's what I love about Spider-Man. Spider-Man is not a perfect hero. Spider-Man, deep down, is just a teenager. You know what I mean? And I love seeing that. I know a lot of people complain about, oh, he whines too much and stuff like that. Well, he's a teenager. Well, what do you expect? He's a teenager. He's gonna, feel struggles and stuff like that. And I don't get a lot of that criticism because he just embodies, what? You're gonna complain about the fact that they actually got a Spider-Man that's actually somewhat, around the age of a teenager this time around. You know what I mean? And he does a really great job here. I like a lot of the stuff that Peter goes through in this film. You know what I mean? And I like that this movie, it kind of feels like a coming-of-age movie, in a way. You know what I mean? This kind of does feel like that. I actually really like the direction that they took this movie in, and I really like Tom Holland's portrayal in this film. Michael Keaton is great in this movie. I think he does a fantastic job as the Vulture. He brings a very calm but menacing presence to the Vulture. I love that, and he does such a great job in the film, and, it makes for a great match against Spider-Man. I love a lot of the action scenes that are involved with the two. The one towards the end with the airplane is intense as hell. The one on the boat is great too, so there's a lot of great action sequences here, and, a lot of that has to do with the battles between Spider-Man and the Vulture, and they feel very intense, and, I like the hero, and villain back and forth that they have between the two of them, because it's really great. I do think they do a really fantastic job with it in the film. Although he's not in the movie much, Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark / Iron Man adds for a great kind of father figure to Spider-Man, honestly. Because, they didn't do the Uncle Ben stuff and whatever, and, a lot of people have said that Tony Stark feels like the Uncle Ben of this universe, and it kind of does feel like that, because, Tony is really like a father figure to Peter. And, and that scene is so heartbreaking when, after the boat action sequence, he's like, I believed in you. When everyone else said I was crazy for recruiting a 14-year-old in, then, Peter goes 15-year-old, and, this is the part where you stop talking, he's getting really serious, and I love that. He's, disappointed in him. He expected better things from him, and it's really sad to watch, I always love this, this line. Where, he's like, I need the suit back, and Peter's like, I'm nothing without the suit, and he said, and Tony says, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. And I think that's a very, very important lesson. We see that in the movie, because the suit doesn't make you the hero. You make yourself the hero, and we see that in the movie, what my absolute favorite moment in this entire movie is when the building is collapsed on Peter, and you know, Peter's like screaming for help, help, you know, because he feels like he can't do it. Like, you know, he just feels like he can't do it. And then when he sees the mask, and you know, he hears, you know, that quote that Tony said, he's like, you know what? The suit doesn't make me the hero. I make myself the hero. And just seeing him like boost his, you know, boost himself up to lift the building off of him. It's just powerful stuff, man. And that's a scene I feel like not a lot of people talk about. And it's really incredible. I love it a lot. I love how it's handled in this movie. I love how, you know, they handle that message. You know, it's not the suit that makes you the hero. It's you that makes you the hero. And it's fantastic. I love how it's done here. Man, it's so good. Man, and just, you know, I love the comedy here. The comedy is fantastic. Like this and Into the Spider-Verse are like the funniest Spider-Man movies to me. Like, just the humor is great. Although some jokes don't work here and there for me, good majority of the humor does work. I am laughing pretty much throughout the good majority of the film. You know, the directing here is great here too. John Waits, I believe that's the director's name. He does an absolutely fantastic job directing this film. You know, he really brings you into this world. You know, he really brings you into this world of Spider-Man and his characters. And he does a really great job with that in the film. Like, I love his, you know, directing here. It's really fantastic. Like, he really brings you into the world of Spider-Man. And he does an absolutely incredible job with that in the film. And, you know, I absolutely love that. You know, he really immerses you into the world of Spider-Man. And it's absolutely fantastic. I love Spider-Man Homecoming a lot. It is, without question, in my opinion, one of the best Spider-Man movies out there. And it's definitely the best one we've had since SpiderMan II. And it's absolutely incredible in my opinion. I absolutely love Homecoming. Definitely one of the best in my opinion. And, you know, not only one of the best Spider-Man films, but one of the best entries into the MCU as well. It's absolutely incredible. I pretty much love every minute of it. And that's it. We're done. I did it. I reviewed every Spider-Man movie into one. Now, the only reason I'm not doing Into the Spider-Verse is because I literally just, like, reviewed that, like, 2 months back. But, just to give some brief thoughts on it, I absolutely love it. Incredible animation, incredible humor, incredible voice acting, incredible messages. Absolutely beautiful film. Love that movie a lot. Definitely one of the best in the Spider-Man franchise. So, there you go. But yeah, I enjoyed looking back, you know, rewatching and reviewing these movies. You know, it was a fun time because Spider-Man is a character that I love dearly. He is a character that I hold very close to my heart. He is just a character that I've always admired ever since I was a little kid. There's 2 things I wanted to be when I was a little kid: a Jedi and Spider-Man. And, you know, I just absolutely love this character a lot, you know. And I feel this is a character that all of us can relate to, you know, regardless of who you are. I feel like we could all relate to Spider-Man. Deep down, we all have a little bit of Spider-Man in us. You know what I mean? Like, he's just the hero that we all aspire to be. You know what I mean? And he's just absolutely incredible. I love this character a lot. So, going back and revisiting basically all of his movies was great. I loved almost every minute of it. You know, sure, we have the Amazing Spider-Man movies down the road, but, you know, it was all a part of the journey, and I loved doing this. This was an absolutely fun retrospect to do. I cannot wait to do more of these in the future. It was a fun time. I actually really had fun making this video, and it was great. And I hope you enjoyed it as well. So, I leave the question to you. What did you think of this retrospect? And please, what do you think of all the Spider-Man movies? How would you rank them? What's your favorite? Please leave it in the comment section below. And I'm FilmFan0599, and we will see you all later. Peace.